Hey friends, in today's video, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the new Iron Banner game mode. It's called Fortress. It's my favorite mode now because it's kind of like Battlefield Conquest. It's a true objective mode where kills are not scored. There's obviously pros and cons to that, the biggest pro being that there's a reason to move out of the spawn. Typically in Control, people just sit in the back with no intention of moving, and it leads to more passive play. However, the biggest con is that you can't really solo carry to win a match. If we're talking carry difficulty, I would say Clash is the easiest, Control is pretty hard, Rift is very hard, and Fortress feels extremely hard to borderline impossible, depending on how lobby balancing is. So as far as Iron Banner modes go, compared to Eruption, I really like Fortress and I really dislike Eruption. Eruption kind of shrinks the skill ceiling and raises the skill floor. It feels artificial and random when it comes to gameplay, so that's why I don't really like it. But now, let me talk about Fortress. I'll recap how the game mode functions. It's 3 zones. Holding a zone is 2 points per interval. If the leading team is at 40 and 80 points, then all the zones go away and a center zone spawns with Cabal turrets. The turrets are kind of a joke and not threatening at all, but you can finesse them for like Warmind cells, Elemental Wells, that type of thing. Usually, on this center zone reset, a bubble super is dropped on the first zone, and then the match turns into mayhem for about a minute until the next central zone spawns. Weirdly, I kind of like the central zone acting as a super magnet, because in other modes, I always have to eat multiple solo supers a match. So, right now, Bubble runs Fortress because it virtually has no neutral counters, and it's a fast charging super that gives Orbs of Light to teammates so that they can charge their own supers, and a damage boost which helps with dealing with other players and other supers. So therefore, Bubble is the best. And before you say, well actually, and then you lecture me on how to kill Bubbles, the game isn't played in a vacuum. No Titan is just going to stand still inside the bubble and let you perform a summoning ritual in there. Realistically, they throw a barricade and dance in and out of the bubble to refresh the armor overshield, and you can't really do anything about it. But if I had to tell you my best neutral shutdowns, meaning it doesn't use a super or heavy ammo, then that would be Peregrine Greaves Shoulder Charge, which coincidentally is also used by a Titan, so it perpetuates the problem and annoyance of Bubbles. You can do this with Offensive Bulwark and Void, or you can throw a Piercing Storm Grenade over the bubble and then Shoulder Charge with the Arc subclass. That also works. The second method is Wither Horde and a Zoning Nade. This can be a Stasis Dustfield Nade where they freeze and just have to sit and bake in the Wither Horde. This could be a Solar Nade, an enhanced one. I call them Inferno Nades. This could be a Vortex Nade. This could be a Storm Nade. Any will work with Wither Horde. Obviously, you go for the direct impact, but if you miss, just chuck the Zoning Nade and hope for the best. The third one is Empowering Rift Freeze with a 1-2 punch Shoddy. Unfortunately, you have to use an aggressive frame, so the Ragnhild is really the only option. I guess you could use Found Verdict. It is easy to proc on a frozen target, but the enhanced trade is just so worth it. The best heavy ammo shutdowns for a bubble would be the Vortex Frame Sword or the Leviathan's Breath Exotic Bow. There's other ones like maybe Acreus or Tractor Cannon, but I find those two to be the most consistent. So if I had to say what is hard meta in the Fortress game mode, I'd say your chances of winning go up when you have more bubbles than your opponent, you have more DMTs, Wither Horde SMGs, Titans, and Peregrine Greaves than your opponents, and if you play Hunter, more enhanced dust fields because they are incredible. As for basic strategy and tips for this game mode, only go for the opening flag if you need free super energy. Otherwise, the standard strat is to slay first, then capture an objective. Ideally, a Slayer player pushes forward to delay enemies from having a line of sight on the flags, while an objective player captures the point. The roles are fluid and change depending on proximity to enemies, your ability cooldowns, etc. Once again, Destiny is not played in a vacuum. If everybody on your team tries to only capture flags, then you'll just instantly be naded to oblivion with no chance to finish the capture. So, as you continue in Fortress, constantly open your ghosts to check for where your opponents and your team are on supers. Pay attention to how many bubbles there are, what shutdowns are there. save your super for the first central reset. If you see too many enemy supers, it might be worth holding onto yours for an easy capture on the next 3 flag rotation. I typically will play my life if I hold power ammo when it's getting close to the central zone reset. During central zone reset, spawns are no longer only in the back of the map. You can actually spawn in the center of the map, so use this knowledge to quickly decide if it's even possible to prevent an enemy capture, or if you should just start running to the other side of the map to set up for the next 3 flag rotation. On certain maps like Rusted Lands, pay attention to where the central zone reset is. Holding A flag is generally bad on Rusted Lands, but specifically in Fortress, A flag is superior because it has a line of sight on the central zone. So after the final central reset, go back to holding C and B as usual, just like the normal control playlist. If you have organized teams, I'll call this an alternate win condition, just like the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. The Cabal turrets can be abused for a variety of bonus that can snowball the match in your team's favor, and you will likely never pull these strategies off in Freelance, however. In Freelance, don't get stuck into the trap of playing this mode like normal control. You can definitely still lane in the back while waiting on your team to regroup, but if they push forward, so should you. Try to never be alone. To fix a staggered spawn, and your Freelance teammates just dying over and over again as a result of it, you have to identify when to overextend into the enemy's home flag and slay enough to flip the spawn. This can have a positive effect of thinning the herd at B flag and getting your team out of tunnel vision habits. Final tip, have fun. This is a unique sandbox where some really stupid builds have some juice, and I'll highlight some of those in the next few vids. One of them I am really excited about. I was using it as a meme and it turned out to just be the hardest meta that exists in this mode, but like I said, it's an alternate win condition and pulling it off is pretty tough. But once you pull it off, the game's a wrap. There's no coming back from it. So, with the tips out of the way, let me zoom out and talk about Fortress overall. I really like this mode, and dare I say, it's my favorite now that Rift is 3v3 in comp. I think 3v3 Rift is much better than 6v6. So, just like how Rift received many positive balance changes, Fortress could also improve, and I might like it even better. You might like it even better. Ideally, I'd like to see the Conquest style control replace the regular control playlist with a variety of skill-based matchmaking and connection-based matchmaking playlist. Also, bring back Rumble permanently while I'm thinking about it. I know I just mentioned SBMM. Those are fighting words in the FPS community. So I'll keep it short and sweet and just say that SBMM does have a place in making the game more palatable to lower skill players so that they have a better chance of falling in love with the game. Some people forget our humble beginnings. On the other hand, skill-based matchmaking can make high-skill lobbies either laggy and/or one-dimensional meta abuse. I'll mention that aggressive lobby balancing makes skill-based matchmaking feel even worse because the weaker players become damage booster fuel to the high-skill players, or they unknowingly create a bad situation for their team more so than the good player can solo carry. I'm at the point where I'll take a longer matchmaking time if it truly means that most of the lobby is similarly skilled and balanced. But I'm not waiting 10 minutes to play Disjunction or some other large map 3 times in a row. Also, since loadouts aren't really taken into account at the highest bracket of SBMM, it leads to very lopsided matches where one team has maybe 4 bubbles and the other team has only 1. Of course, sandbox balancing is more at fault than anything, and it's not news to any high skill player that bubbles and barricades are the strongest right now. Who would have thought? I think there needs to be another pass on ability potency, uptime, easy use, and counter options. Simultaneously, weapon outliers need some adjustment with effective range, time to kill, crit ratio, and easy use. Obviously, in-air play is already being adjusted, so I won't mention that. Finally, exotic armor can add to the spam nature of powerful abilities, so I think some dials should be tuned to make it cost more to do so. Think like Bakris dodge cooldown extension, for example. So, when all of this sandbox is working in harmony, I think game modes like Fortress can really shine as the best modes in Destiny. I hope you found this video helpful and insightful. I will see you in the next one, and remember, these are always opinions. Thanks, everybody.